Live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello, everyone. This is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thank you very much for joining us. We are live streaming here out of the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom, and that is what you see behind me. We're here every weekday, starting at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and then going throughout till 4 o'clock, really, covering a wide range of topics. And if there's ever breaking news, this is when you can also tune in. We'll get that to you as well. But right now, we're talking about wine, something that I think a lot of people understand Oregon is very good at. But the first perfect score bottle of wine has just happened. At least the score given from Decanter magazine, and that is to Bethel Heights Vineyard. And we're going to talk all about that right now, what goes into that, how that happens. We've got Ben Casteel joining us right now. Ben, thank you very much for being here with us. Really appreciate your time. Congratulations, by the way, on this. And I want to get into that and how one goes about creating a perfect score wine and all of that. But before we do, could you tell us just about Bethel Heights and a little bit about the vineyard there that you're at, and maybe a little how it got started?
Of course, yeah. Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. So my family moved to Oregon in 1978 and bought what was at the time a baby vineyard. It was planted in 1977. They purchased it from a guy named Vic Winquist, who planted a lot of things in the Eola Amity Hills. A lot of other vineyards people may have heard of, Temperance Hill, Seven Springs. So when my family bought it, it was primarily not Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. In the late 70s, you know, Riesling was more expensive by the ton than Pinot Noir. There was a whole lot of other things planted, but there was a little bit of Chardonnay and a little bit of Pinot in the ground in 1977, which is what went into the wine that was rated by Decanter. So my family bought the original planted acreage was about 25. They added 25 more in 1979. And now we farm about 80 acres total, all certified organic. It sounds big, but we could walk across it in about 20 minutes. So it's by no means huge.
Gotcha. Yeah. Still, though, that's I mean, definitely grown from what sounds like from where you started. I mean, 80 acres of this and all organic, you mentioned.
Yes. Yeah. We certified organic in 2021.
Nice. Well, and so going from this, you know, and talking about these specific kinds of wines, you know, let's talk about this award winner. You know, how did this go about?
Well, it's funny. It's the grapes are very genetically unstable, and so you hear wine growers and winemakers like me talk about clones. So these were cuttings that were taken from the Wente vineyard in Livermore, California, and just stuck in the ground at Bethel Heights. So it's on a big, tall, goofy trellis system. I mean, this thing about Zoom calls is you can't tell how tall anybody is. They're about as tall as me. They're almost 6 feet tall.
Okay.
And it's funny, the notion that we could have made even a single wine out of this, I probably would have laughed at 15 years ago. I asked my father when I started making the wine here in 2005, I was like, hey, when do you pick the Wente? And he would just say to me, at the end. And I said, what do you mean at the end? He's like, when it's going to start raining in October and it's not going to stop until April, that's when you pick the Wente. I think it probably never got to his ideal level of ripeness for his entire career, which was 20 years. And it certainly didn't get there for the first 10 years of mine. And I feel very fortunate that my family had every opportunity to rip out this section that they were struggling to get even basic ripeness with for over 30 years. And they didn't. They chose to be patient, and I got to be, lucky enough to be here when the weather is, I think, a little more appropriate to the thing they stuck in the ground.
Wow, 30 years of that much patience. Like I can't imagine having that myself. But then again, I do not own a vineyard, so I don't quite understand the level of patience you must have to have. But about 30 years of that to get to this point.
Yeah, and it's a reminder with wine grapes, we only get to do this once a year. And so you only get to do it so many times. I mean, I've been in the wine industry since I was 21. I've been the winemaker here at Bethel Heights for 20 years, but that means I've only really done it 20 times, which isn't that many times.
That's a really fascinating way to look at it. I didn't really think about it in that way. So yeah, so each year, I mean, that's it. That's your shot. Whatever happens, and then it's on. Then you got to wait a year for the next time.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not quite a native Oregonian. I'm close. We moved here from Seattle when I was less than 1 year old. But I mean, for those of us who live here, we all know that the weather in October can be many things, but nice outside is usually not one of those things. And so, for years in the Eola Hills, being a little further south, so we're further south than a lot of the other nested viticultural areas like Dundee and Ribbon Ridge. So it's cooler down here. And it's one of those things that, that my family, I don't know if it was prescient of them to think that what will be in 30 years, but as the weather has warmed up, 2014 was the first year we put the high wire Chardonnay into an individual bottling. And I don't think it's coincidence that's the warmest vintage that Oregon has ever had. And I thought it was the best wine we made of either color. 2015 was even hotter than that. And subsequently, I also thought that the high wire Chardonnay we made that year was probably the best wine we made of either color. 23 now was the third warmest vintage on record. And that's the wine we're talking about today.
And tell me, how does this go about? What's this process like, just for the people who aren't involved in the industry, of having a wine ranked, and what goes into that?
Well, it can happen a few different ways. Sometimes the journalists will come here and they'll walk out in the vineyard with us, and we'll taste and we'll go through the wines. They're obviously taking their notes, and I'm trying to keep my mouth shut so I'm not influencing anything. I'm just kind of there to answer questions if they have them. In this case, Clive Pursehouse from Decanter magazine reached out to me via email and just said, "Hey, I'm doing a review and I realize I don't have your wines here." So I actually very hastily threw them all in a box and shipped them UPS to his house. So I wasn't present when he tasted.
Wow. So
He dropped me a line. Oh gosh, what was it? At least probably a week ago now, and just said, "Hey, this is a first for me," and it's certainly one for me. So yeah, that's how it happened.
So he went through that, and what are some of the things that they're looking for to give a perfect score like that?
To be honest with you, I don't know. I think they're looking for obviously quality. I think they're looking for typicity. That if that it's a Chardonnay that I made and it actually tastes like a Chardonnay. I think they're doing what all of us try to do, which is looking, where is this wine right now, and perhaps where will it be in 5-10 years. But honestly, I'm not really sure. I think, we are always proud of our work. My father always found press like this very validating. I've always tried not to do that for myself, just because I don't want, the only two outcomes I can have to be either relieved or disappointed. But it's certainly an honor, and it's really my hope that it helps raise the conversation of Chardonnay in Oregon. I think when people think of Oregon, they very much think of Pinot Noir as being the one grape that we can do really, really well. And my hope, if anything comes of this, is that it furthers the conversation that we, in fact, do several things well. Yeah,
and adding Chardonnay into the mix for that. What's the feedback been like from other, people in your industry, other vineyards, other people, your peers?
It's been very overwhelming. That has been probably my favorite part of what has come of all this is, it's a very collegial industry. And I think people always view producers that like we're competing with each other, and, to an extent in the market we are. But I am very fortunate in my friends that I freely share information with them, and they do the same with me. It's one of the things I think that makes the Oregon wine industry the great thing it is our culture. And no, the outpouring has been tremendous. It's been, like I said, it's been a lot, but very overwhelming for me.
I love the fact that's true. That you all are sharing information with each other and supporting each other, and bringing the industry up as a whole. And something for you though, going back to this, 30 years of those grapes there, and your dad and the family, and having this, since I think you said 78 was when this property was purchased, if I have that right?
It's when my family purchased it. It was planted in 1977.
Planted in 77. So thinking back through all that time and all of your experience there and all your different seasons and family, how does it feel personally, like when you got that call, when you got this notification that you had a perfect 100 bottle?
Well, the first thing I did is I went and shared it with my aunt, who is also the person who sort of works here full time. She's the president of our company, and we were both kind of looking at each other with a little bit of shock. But it is a family business, and I play a part, but everybody here plays a part. Like my uncle farmed Bethel Heights since 1978. My father made the wine for the first 20 years. My cousin Ben Casteel has done a lot of consulting with us over the years. She's worked here. She was the one who really pushed us to stop tilling this block. For a lot of reasons, it's good with own-rooted vines because they're vulnerable not to move the soil around too much. And we started doing that in 2014, and I think it's one of the reasons these vines are even still alive. So yeah, I mean, everybody plays a role. My brother and I and my cousins all grew up here. We all worked our summers sweating and thinking to ourselves, there's no way we want to do this for the rest of our lives. And yet here we are.
And here you are. Yeah, still. Obviously, it's in your blood or something because, putting it that many times, 20 seasons of it, and more than that, really. But for everybody out there who now wants to try this, obviously, is that possible for them to do?
Well, it's been one of the hard things to figure out as to what on earth do we do. Historically, this wine has been for our wine club, and so we've given our wine club the first access to it, and we're going through that process now. And then I think, if people have interest, we have a list that we're taking at the winery. And either through our info at Bethel Heights account or just call and express some interest in what you might want, and then we're going to do our best to fulfill as many requests as we can. It's the hard thing when you get good news and you look and realize you only made 187 cases of something, but it's the way it is.
It's the way it is. Yeah, that's what makes it even that much more special. Well, congratulations, Ben, for all of that. And is there anything else that you want people to know just about your vineyard or wine in general, or even this one, the winner?
I mean, I think if I could share one more thing, it would be, for people who are local to come out and explore wine country. The nice thing about a lot of the wineries in Oregon is we're all pretty small. I think the mean average case production is about 5,000 cases. So if you come to the winery, there's a pretty good chance you're going to talk to somebody who's actually very close to it. And I think, in terms of farming, in terms of production, wine can open up a lot of conversations. And I think they're good conversations to have about sustainability, farming, what makes wine what it is. There really is. It's one of those things that it's like perfume, and it either smells good or it doesn't. There's not a lot of qualitative checks and balances, but I think the conversation is always the most fascinating thing. And I would encourage people, the Willamette Valley Wineries Association is a tremendous resource in terms of looking at what kind of wineries do I want to visit? Can I bring my dog? Who has food? Who doesn't have food? So I would just encourage people to get out, come see us, come talk to us. It's a lot more fun to do in person than it is over a screen. So that's what I would say.
That is true. That is true, especially when there's wine involved. So that, absolutely. Well, Ben, thank you very much for joining us. And again, congratulations, on all of this and the success and just what this means, both for you and your family, but also just the industry as a whole and for the state. And thanks, Ben. Thanks for having time to talk to us.
Greg, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You bet. And for everybody watching too, thanks for joining us. This is Fox 12 Now. We're live streaming, as I mentioned. We go throughout the afternoon covering a wide range of topics. So thanks for being here. And don't forget to share this episode or find out some of the other topics we covered today on the other segments. So wide variety of things for you to look at there on the Fox 12 Oregon app, KPTV.com, or even our YouTube channel. So thanks for joining us. I'll talk to you soon. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12.